through his estate where he could fish for trout. He learnt that Jason had married one of the most notorious of all the cocottes in Paris. She had already been the mistress of 2 princes and the King of the Netherlands. When Lord Lainden was first informed, he was immediately suspicious of her motives. Later he was proved right, that the woman had more or less tricked Jason into marriage, craving his title and his fortune. There was no doubt that he was infatuated with her. But the Duke had believed that he still had the decency not to besmirch the family name. So how could Jason marry a woman who they would be ashamed to put on the family tree? The Duke wanted to find excuses for his son, but it was impossible to escape the anger and the disapproval of his relatives, besides the humiliating pity of his friends. "There is nothing I can do," he wailed to Lord Lainden in a broken-hearted voice. "Nothing," was the reply, "except make sure that Jason stays away from London, and perhaps in time this will all be forgotten. To think a woman like that will one day be the chatelaine of Woodhall makes me wish I was dead," fumed the Duke. There were no words with which Lord Lainden could comfort him. Woodhall had been in the family for 5 centuries, and each generation had made many alterations and improvements. Now it was one of the most famous ancestral homes in England, and its collection of pictures, furniture, and silver was spoken of with awe. The woman who Jason had married would reign there in state. Worse still, her children, if she produced any, would be an unthinkable insult to the Marchwood name. All these recollections flashed through Della's mind before she asked, "Why has Jason returned, Uncle Edward?" "His wife has very conveniently died," he replied, "and he has apologized to his father for his appalling behavior." "Apologized?" exclaimed Della. "I think the truth is that he has passed through a special hell since he married her, and it is a great relief to him to be free." "Well, I suppose it is one step in the right direction, but I should imagine it is doubtful that his repentance is genuine." She spoke rather sarcastically, because she had never liked Jason. Of course, he was very much older than her, but even as a child she considered him an unpleasant man. He was not good-looking like his father, and the last time she had seen him, she noticed that the debauchery of his life had left its mark on his face. He had certainly extended the sowing of his wild oats for a long time, and now she imagined, as the years had passed, he would look even worse. She felt extremely sorry for the Duke. Aloud she said, "There is nothing you can do, Uncle Edward, so do not upset yourself over Jason. He is not worth it." There was a silence for a moment before Lord Lainden resumed. "The Duke has come to me with what he feels would be an excellent solution to his problem." "I cannot imagine what that can possibly be," commented Della. "Although his wife is now dead, I expect he will still find another one who is unlikely to be any better than the last." "The Duke now tells me that he is quite certain Jason is telling the truth when he says he was tricked into marriage. He has now informed his father that he wants to marry sensibly and settle down at the Hall." "If the Duke believes that," answered Della, "he must be a great optimist." "He wants to believe him, and he asks for our help to ensure that Jason keeps his word. If he genuinely makes a new life for himself, it will be very different to the way he has lived in the past." "I would not bet on it," said Della scathingly. "And quite frankly, Uncle Edward, I resent you being worried and upset by Jason." Her voice became scornful as she continued. "He has behaved abominably, as you well know, made his father and mother miserable, and reduced a great number of his relatives to tears." She had a feeling her uncle was not listening, but carried on insistently. "One of them told me, when we were last in London, how ashamed she was that Jason was her cousin. In fact, she often thought that people looked at her in a criticizing manner in case she resembled him in any way." "I can understand that, but the Duke is absolutely convinced that Jason has now seen the error of his ways, and of course he wants to believe his son." "He will be lucky if anyone else does," remarked Della. Her uncle gave a sharp look.